length. So I can try and call one more time. Otherwise, I'd say we'll just start and pick him back up. Or if, you know, is Danielle Atkins on? Or Stephanie? I see Stephanie, because if we can either, I think Jocelyn, Danielle, we're all at the end.
Okay.
If we can just switch that order, and when I rustle him up, because I know yesterday, and I think that'll be good, and we'll be able to provide the context after we have more information maybe. I just want to say hi to everybody. Thank you all for graciously and making it easy to put on this event. I know all of you all are busy, particularly in this time with all the uncertainty. So I will go one by one at the end and thank you personally after the event, but I do appreciate it from Dave Coulter, Mr. Jones, Representative Carter, who else is on this? Stephanie, NAACP Northern Oakland County Branch NAACP President, Brenda Lawrence, as always, Congresswoman, who I know your district extends up to Pontiac. It's just an honor to be able to see all of you face to face and help our community learn more about who it is that we keep being encouraged to vote, 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 register to vote, vote. Now we're going to find out why and who we're voting for. So on that note, I guess while I have the mic, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Dr. Patricia Ferguson, board certified OBGYN by training. After about a 30-year career in the metropolitan Detroit area, I transferred over to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I work in as a physician consultant in quality control, quality assurance for a subsidiary called Emergent Holdings. But early in my career, I organized this organization called Each One Teach One. And our goal was to provide resources for students from grades 4 through 12 and their families and connect them with resources in the community. So the goal being, if they use resources to maximize their background education, and they would have an increased opportunity for success. So our main function each year is an event called Prep for Success. And we extended to include things like this, forums to help the families better understand how involved they need to be and how much responsibility they have for their success. So I'm hoping that platforms like this and opportunities like this continue to help us to grow and realize what responsibility we have to see the success we want to have. On that note, thank you. And I'm going to turn over to Jordan and Wen-kuni, who actually provide the platform for me to be able to do this. And here's Professor Griggs.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Ferguson, for your introduction. My name is Jordan Wilson. I'm the co-founder of Politicking app. I'm here with my co-founder, Wen-kuni Cèant, and we're so happy to virtually be in the greater Detroit area today. I see a lot of significant and important faces from local, state, and national politics in the area. And in 100 days, we'll either retain or elect a new president. And then we'll also have the opportunity to re-elect or elect new state and local representatives. And so we thought it was so important to partner with Dr. Ferguson today so that folks in the greater Detroit area understood who was running, who was currently in office, and what the stakes were for participating. So today's program will be relatively simple, but hopefully impactful in helping people understand why it's so important to vote in November and in your upcoming primaries. And that's really because we'll focus on what's happening in the community and what will be the repercussions of participating in the November and again, local elections. So thank you all for joining us today.
Jordan, I just wanted to echo your sentiments, also introduce myself. My name is Wen-kuni Cèant. I'm the other co-founder of Politicking. As Dr. Ferguson and Jordan said, we are delighted to have you guys here with us today. I will probably be y'all's least favorite person as I'm the timekeeper for this evening. I trust that we'll all be very respectful of each other's time and that everyone on the call kind of knows their boundaries. Generally, that's between 5 and 10 minutes, and you've been advised prior to that. So I'll try to be as friendly as possible while trying to make sure that we're respecting one another's time. So it's a pleasure to meet you all, and thanks for joining with Politicking and Each One Teach One this evening.
Yes. So many of our participants and panelists today received a runner program, but what we're going to do, since we have the absolute honor and pleasure of being with Congresswoman Lawrence, is allowing her for about 10 minutes to tell us what she's been able to accomplish in the House, and really give us her pitch or help us understand why the upcoming state and local elections are urgent for residents of the greater Detroit area. Of course, your constituents, but everyone who's in the surrounding area.
Thank you so much. And it's with great honor that I recognize Dr. Ferguson, an amazing woman who I chose to help educate on the issue of maternal mortality and how it relates to and infecting Black women at a higher rate than any other rate in America. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone says this is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. I can tell you during my tenure in Congress, and if I could just give a brief overview, started my career on school board, passionate because my children were in school. I wanted to make a difference, got involved with the PTA, said, I want to make a difference. Why won't these people on this board listen to me? I want to be on that board so I can make a difference. And they told me I had to run for office. That scared the crap out of me. I go like, I don't know anything about politics. I was fortunate enough to win. I won by 12 votes, served as president of that board, then ran for city council, served as president of city council, ran for mayor, was the first African-American, and then having the wonderful honor to walk the halls of Congress as a member of Congress, one of the few Black women in the history of this country to have that honor. Ladies and gentlemen, this last 4 years have been more than challenging, more than disappointing. It has been just an attack on, I feel, our democracy. So I just want to do a quick overview and answer any questions later. We need gun control in America. We're talking about the violence that's happening, and I can tell you Black Lives Matter. I don't care whose bullet is killing them. I am so devastated right now about the violence and the number of African Americans who are dying. I marched with the Black Lives Matter groups because I do believe we need reform of our police department. As a mayor, I have the ultimate responsibility of a police department. And I can tell you how critical and important police are to our quality of life. However, everyone expects the police to protect and serve, not to attack and seize. So I voted for gun control. I serve as the co-chair of the Women's Caucus for the United States Congress, and I'm the co-chair of the Democratic Women's Issues for Congress. So I have fought for Violence Against Women Act VAWA to be passed. We have passed it through the houses in Mitch McConnell's graveyard when we talk about the importance of this race, gun control, violence against women, the Voting Rights Act. And so many people are running to the mic to say great things about John Lewis. They should be casting their vote to approve the Voting Rights Act. Really, I serve on appropriations. If you want to know what someone believes in, follow their money. And so if this country really do care about the poor, if we really want to ensure that all children are educated, if we want to ensure that our infrastructure is fixed, our money should reflect those values. And so I sit on appropriations, and we now have our appropriation bill sitting in Mitch McConnell's graveyard. We know we have the stimulus package that is now at least being debated. When I say graveyard, that means that the Congress passed the bill, we send it over to the Senate, and Mitch McConnell refused to even bring it to the floor for a vote. We have so much work to do. This election is so critical. And I want to close with this. Your vote, my vote, America votes is in danger because of this attack on the Postal Service. If we do not have vote by mail, which is part of our democracy right now because of COVID, so many people will not be able to go to an election poll to vote. Please make sure, if it is like a week out and you haven't sent your ballots in, and especially in Michigan, take it to your clerk's office and drop it off at the clerk's office. Do not put it in the mail now. I am so concerned about mail backing up, and the new Postmaster General, who was a high donor of Donald Trump, had no experience with postal operations, is now in charge, carrying out the president's will. So I want everyone to vote. I want everyone to stay safe. And thank you for this honor. And I look forward to talking to you and hearing from my other colleagues who are on the line. Thank you so much.
So if anyone wants to add a question in the dialogue box for Representative Lawrence, we have literally like 2 to 3 minutes. We appreciate your words, Congresswoman, about the importance of the election, and particularly how it will impact issues that affect us all, regardless of policy. Politicking is a nonpartisan political information platform. What we want people to do is participate. And so your words about the importance, again, of the impact of the election aren't lost on us. What we like to do is really take a step back and allow Professor Griggs to give us some historical context on the election. He might be able to tell us, you know, how things that are happening now have been impacted by the past, but we'd like to ask Professor Griggs just to give us historical context about the election and the impact of these upcoming state, local, and national cycles.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, but you can't see me though, huh?
There's a picture of you.
Oh, really? I'm trying the video. I don't know, my computer, we're at odds today for some reason. It's just not allowing this video to come on. So, well, I guess you guys can, since you guys can hear me, I will tell you some history about politics, right? So just like a lot of other things that plague our community, or we see a lack of engagement, it comes down to our history, okay? A lot of the things that happened to us, and the remedy, again, started many, many years ago, okay? Politics was one of those things. So we were severely punished for engaging in politics, as well as education and other things. And this didn't happen just for a week or a month. We would be killed for engaging in politics. And we know the long history of what happened to Nat Turner, involvement with politics, what happened to Martin Luther King's engagement in politics, and Malcolm X. So typically when you abuse people for centuries to leave something alone, it has a carryover effect. And most of us alive today, we're just 4 to 5 people removed from slavery. Just 4 to 5 people removed from slavery. So, you know, and this not only affects us in politics, but, you know, we see this in education with literacy scores and things of that nature, and when it comes to reading. So a lot of things that happened to us yesterday that we were severely punished for, we still find those markers of folks trying to get people involved in some of these things. So one thing about engagement, we noticed that when you expose Black people to things, right? Even some of these things with this painful past, we will get engaged. The last election, well, when President Obama ran for presidency, he did something that was unique that a lot of other candidates did not do. He went to young people and got those young people engaged. He sat Puffy down, Sean Combs, he talked to Jay-Z, he talked to Beyonce, just that crowd of folks that a lot of candidates for years just overlooked. So what he did was he stimulated them and got them engaged in politics. And what did we see? We saw the largest number of folks come out in the Black community that we have ever seen. Now, Hillary, when she ran, she didn't engage us like that. And this engagement has to be an ongoing thing. As an educator, I wish it was in school, because I noticed in my Black politics class, when students learn about how important politics affect their life, I have many students tell me that they changed their major to go into politics. But we can't expect a lot of folks to have an interest in something when they're not engaged. I didn't have politics in high school. So to me, it wasn't even on the radar. And we have noticed that if you're not exposed to certain things, people just don't naturally develop an interest in it. We don't have a whole bunch of Black anthropologists because of a lot of our schools don't teach anthropology. So if we want the level of engagement that we would like to, and the turnout we would like to see, we have to expose more of our young folks to politics, and they would naturally become engaged. We saw this in other fields. Let's say if it was Serena. Coco Gauff, this young phenom, said that when she saw Serena and she was exposed to that, then that made her want to go into tennis. But if Serena was not there, that desire to go into tennis might not be there. So this unique history that we have, right, it's a big challenge for us because, again, the history has taught us to leave education alone where we suffer, to leave politics alone where we suffer. So we have to engage our people to develop an interest in this stuff. Now, these classes that I teach, I'll show you how important history is. So when President Obama, when he was running for office, there were some students, 18, 19 years of age. And they were in class talking about, you know, him running, and they were excited. But a lot of young people said, well, you know what? Even if he wins, I think they're going to kill him. And I heard this in the barbershops. I heard this in the classroom. So you have to think about this history. These are 18 and 19-year-old people who think that there's a great deal of pain associated with politics that could ultimately cost President Obama his life. So if they thought that about him running for president, just imagine the average feelings of folks who frankly going into politics or being involved in politics if they believe that some painful thing is associated with it. Right. So our history and engagement that we would like to see, we have to engage these young people. Now, I think you posed a question about the local and national elections. Is that right, Jordan? Did you ask me about that?
That's right, Professor Griggs.
Okay.
I think that there is a misconception to some, certainly not you, but to many, that the largest implication on our day-to-day lives starts from the White House. I don't agree with that. I'm sure a lot of people on this call don't. And so I'd like for you to understand or help us understand historically why that is.
Yeah, politics, you know, they have this saying about politics is local. It's more how it impacts our lives. And it is. And when I go over this in class, it shapes just about everything we do, right? How the schools are funded, how the police conduct themselves. Politics affect healthcare. It affects, you know, how many computers we might have access to. It affects the criminal justice system and mass incarceration. Now, when we go over these things in class, then people have a deeper understanding about how important politics affect our lives. But again, if they don't have that information, if they can't make that connection, then they'll make, you know, often they're remiss about how valuable politics and our engagement in it. A lot of times they remiss that, right? So I have students who look at the Democrats and the Republicans as the same. They see no difference. They think that all of these folks out here, to a great extent, all politicians are crooked. They have that idea, and we hear that. A lot of times they don't get into the weeds and understand what candidates bring to the table and how politics, a lay understanding of politics is when people occupy a position to decide who gets what. And that's very important for us to understand. And depending on that person and how they think and their policies will affect what communities get this and what communities don't get certain resources. You see, many years ago in education, it used to be called political economics. They used to have classes, political economics. It was commonly understood economics were the resources and politics were the decision to decide the allocation of those resources. So a lot of folks don't mesh the two, don't understand that they work in concert with each other and the tactics that come along with politics. And as I stated before, that the threats that came with being involved in politics, we see that on a national level as well. Trump is basically bullying people. Even in his own party, we know it's people who disagree with him, but they're so scared of the political backlash that they won't cross that line. But they're doing what's been done to other marginalized communities. They used to bully us. My father in Birmingham, coming through Jim Crow, could not vote. My grandfather, the politics against my grandfather 30-some years of age, got hurt at the job, but the politics in Alabama, he was not allowed to go to the hospital. So the family just basically gathered around him, prayed, and he died. About a 32-year-old man with 7 children. But it was the politics of Jim Crow that stopped me from having a relationship with my grandfather. So those politics are all around us and affect and shape all of our lives, and they have a rippling effect. So his friends and his network that I could have received and benefited from, because of those politics in Jim Crow, I was denied that. So the more involvement that we have, my students get to see how it affects us, and in our classroom setting, they become more involved. But that's with understanding. A lot of people outside of that want young people to just have a desire for it. But if we don't teach them and engage them and show them how important local politics are and how the national politics affect our lives, we'll still be having this discussion years from now.
Thank you, Professor Griggs. I think that was so informative, and as you probably already do, you could probably teach a lecture on this. I'd be very curious to hear from Representative Carter. I see her on the screen, and if she doesn't mind speaking to us for a moment, give us about 5 minutes on what the importance of participating in the upcoming election is from your point of view, and then also please just let us know what it is like to sort of fill out your role as a state legislator, but to also work with other state and local officials in the area.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. It is critical, this election cycle, being a state legislator and being able to see how things are governed, especially when you're in the minority. It really lends a bird's eye view on what we need to do as far as making sure that our voices are heard. You know, unfortunately, we had an episode this past week where several legislators on the Democratic side spoke passionately about what was happening to our education system in Michigan and how people of color and people who are impoverished are disproportionately represented in the legislature. It is critical that a couple things that we do is very important. Number one, we have to keep our community informed. No matter what, we have to keep our community informed because they have to understand that their vote is very, very important. You know, I heard some verbiage from late John Lew, excuse me, I can't even remember his name, I'm overwhelmed. Congressman Lewis today about the importance of the vote. His whole legacy was about getting out the vote. He took beatings for getting out the vote. What is happening now is what was happening then when John Lewis was taking that beating, going across that bridge. We really need to understand clearly that this is the election of our lifetime right now. It's the election of our lifetime, and everybody that stands for our values, what we believe in, human values, making sure that we have clean water, making sure that we have affordable housing, making sure that we have healthcare systems in a pandemic. You know, we just have to make sure that we get people out there on the front lines, our essential workers, which are our legislators, our people who are in these offices. We got to make sure that we empower them to fight this battle because we cannot go through what we've been going through next term. So that is where I'm standing at right now. I'm working right now. I wasn't strong in education, I still am, but human values, making sure that our communities get the needs, that the essential resources that they need just to live on this planet. So I hope everybody understands the significance of how important this election is, how important the census is, making sure that we don't lose another congressional representative. You know, we just got to step, now, if ever before, we have to step up. This is it. This is it.
Representative, can you please tell us about your last term in the State House? Can you tell us about your upcoming plans and really help us understand what it's been like for you in terms of an experience these last couple of years?
Yes, I can. I really went to the State House, well, really not knowing how governance work on the state and national level, experiencing it. Just to go into a committee meeting where I had the background with MASB, PSD, excuse me, Pontiac School District Board of Education, Michigan Association of School Boards, National School Board Association. I did this for 8 years, several years being president at dual times in both organizations, just to go up to the legislature, and my voice is not heard. In fact, with the Education Committee, as many bills that we put in to support our school system and support our teachers, only one came out of committee, and that's House Bill 4483, one that I moved forward. So the point of the matter is, it's been challenging. There's been some things going up in the legislature that I didn't expect. You know, for some reason, I thought we would have just equality and equity across the board, but it's not there. I think that, you know, and I say this lightly, I think that the other side of the aisle put more emphasis on corporations and financing and, you know, non-human issues, where we, our side of the aisle, really fight for human issues. And it's been very, very difficult. I left the chamber last week just sitting in total amazement. How can you make more, how can you be more punitive to our teachers and our students and our parents when we're already at the bottom of the list for funding? I mean, what's the point? And this is the thing that we learned, that I learned as a first-term legislator. And going into my second term, I'm definitely stronger, definitely more focused. Got a lot of great people that I'm working with. I'm proud to say that I work all the time with my sorority sister, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence.
Yes, you do.
So this is a Delta thing here. But and then I'm also proud to say that I work very collaboratively with the county executive, Dave Coulter. When, I mean, some amazing things have come out of Oakland County as far as keeping us informed with how many COVID-19 cases we have, putting out their kits for businesses to start up again. It's just a lot of things that you learn on different levels, whether it's the national level with Congresswoman Lawrence, the county level with County Exec Coulter, even Kelly Williams and my superintendents that I work with in my district. And then I do have an amazing district. So what can I say? I've been very blessed to learn a lot in 19 months, and I look forward to keeping the battle, being on the battlefront.
May I say something about the differences in the offices? I'll just take a couple minutes if it's all right with the host. I think it's important.
Absolutely.
When I went into Congress, I went in with President Obama being the president, so a Democratic president. The House was in the minority, and the Senate, the Democrat, when I say minority, the Democrats were in. So then we got the majority in the House. And so the dynamics of having a Democratic president, for me, you know, I'm gonna say this very strongly, is that even if policies were written that we felt were hurtful, with being in the minority, we had a president that would not sign it into law. So now we are in the majority, we're passing bills. The Senate won't take it up because it's been the policy of Mitch McConnell is that if the president doesn't want to sign it, he won't bring it forward. We have never in the history of our country saw our democracy gridlock like this. The gridlock to the fact that if we pass a bill in the House and it goes to the Senate, they're supposed to debate it. They are supposed to vote it up or down, change it, and then send it back for approval. But instead, it's not even brought forward. So dynamics, that's why your vote is so important. So we got a Democratic president, but no one paid any attention to the House. So now it's all hands on deck. We need, I feel strongly, we need to have Joe Biden in the White House. We need to change the White House. We need to keep Gary Peters in office. We need to keep our Democratic representatives. We are so excited about Dave Coulter being the first Democrat in Oakland County. we have seen the policies that are directly related to the people. And then you talk about your mayors. My goodness, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, that's where your policing policies are enforced or shaped. Your mayors are very important. Your school board, I know the education of our children rests so much, there's so much responsibility there. So all hands on deck. Thank you.
Wow, Congresswoman Lawrence, I just want to say that, and I can speak for Dr. Ferguson and my co-founder Wen-kuni as hosts, we're personally touched by the sense of community that you all are showing at various levels of government. I know that you've talked about the challenges that you face as the 14th District representative. I'm even curious to hear about some of the challenges that the representative for the 13th District, Congresswoman Tlaib, is facing. We see that she's joined us, and I'd love for her to talk to us about some of her work, obviously, in office. It seems like time has flown by since you've taken office. It's incredible. And that's because you're doing amazing things. And so I'd love for you to tell us about some of your achievements, your plans for reelection, and of course, why it's so important that folks vote for you, but that people participate generally at the local, state, and federal level this fall.
No, thank you so much, Jordan. I really appreciate this coming together, not allowing a pandemic to not keep us civically engaged and moving forward with our democracy. I do want to remind folks that I was born and raised in Detroit. I seem to have to remind folks, but I'm also a proud product of Detroit Public Schools. I'm the eldest of 14, grew up with a father that was very proud UAW member. One of the things you should know is I hit the ground running on the issue around water. We did pass a historic Water is a Human Right Fund with the help of course, my colleague, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, but also really in partnership with Energy and Commerce Committee member Debbie Dingell. And we were able to get $1.5 billion in the HEROES Act, which is wonderful because when we sent it over there now, the minority leader on that committee on the other side is now looking at $4 billion for Water as a Human Right Fund. So you all probably know this from, I think any of us that are civically engaged, we're also like social workers, and we're the ones that people call upon us. And so, you know, there's all this help for gas and electricity, but they're never really a solid aid to help people keep their water on. And so Water as a Human Right Fund is direct aid to reconnection to low-income families. And hopefully between $1.5 to $4 billion will be in the next COVID relief package that we'll negotiate this week. Also historic Amendment 100 environmental groups worked with myself and we co-led it with Kildee, Congressman Kildee and Slotkin, where we got $22.5 billion in lead, replacing lead contaminated pipelines. And I know Executive Coulter knows this is a critical issue around our state. I think we're the 4th in the nation that needs to fully replace. And Coulter knows this, and many of our local elected folks know this. Right now, there's partial replacement, but you know, doctors and scientists and everybody say no amount of lead is safe. So having the infrastructure bill come out, but carving out that $22.5 billion, it's a huge significant bump, and saying full replacement for water contaminated, lead contaminated pipelines. And so this is something, again, nationally. We also recently, in the recent appropriations budget, got them up to $1 billion for additional money for replacement of the pipes. I did get a bill passed into law. Yes, the president I ran to impeach did sign a law, a bill of mine into law. I didn't get invited to the White House for the signing, but that's okay. So I worked with my Republican colleagues, and it was a loophole. As you know, I'm an attorney, so one of the loopholes was in there. There was a huge protection for Social Security scams, veteran, veteran affairs, like VAs payments, but there was nothing that covered the retirement pensions. And so these are representatives that kind of scam people out of their money. It's a huge issue, and I wanted to champion it, but we got that signed into law, which we're really, really pleased. On top of that, we did 2 congressional hearings in the district, one in the shadows of Marathon Oil Refinery. As you know, that is a predominantly Black community that has been polluted on with high rates of asthma, respiratory issues. And so we were able to follow up and do a number of accountability letters from the House Oversight Committee that I sit on with Representative Lawrence. I'm the vice chair of the Subcommittee on Environment. And we also sent one to all my Oakland County folks. You know, you can't stand Nestle like me. We did send one to Nestle saying, yo, yeah, it's nice that you sent 18,000 bottles of water to Flint, but you know what? Why don't we just give us the free clean water and let's get people some water directly? I don't, you know. So I just want Jordan and everybody to know we really have been able to raise the bar and take everything on the local level, on the national level, and especially around, you know, when we think about how many African Americans died of COVID, significant 40% of our Black neighbors died of COVID versus, you know, even though I think African Americans make less than 15% of the total population in Michigan. But it's because of environmental racism. It's because of these pre-existing systems that have been placed where folks are living in communities where the conditions are so bad, respiratory issues, again, high rates of asthma. You know, none of our kids are really being truly understood that if they got any exposure to lead, y'all, they're having a hard time learning. And so these are things that we're bringing to light as folks are all around the world and here at home doing the uprising for Black Lives Matter. Many of those that are marching are not also focusing on who killed George Floyd, which is significantly important. And that's why I think, you know, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence and so many just championing justice and policing, and that was important. It's also important, and last point, important that what killed George Floyd? What are the systems that are in place that really set it up where so many of our, again, Black neighbors are not only dying from COVID, dying at a higher rate, obviously from systematic racism within police departments, the fact that we have more police and militarization of our schools versus social workers and nurses, that's what I grew up with. That's what our kids deserve. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Congresswoman, we had a question I think would be interesting for obviously any of the candidates who have already spoken to answer, but certainly you and Congresswoman Lawrence, and it was, you know, what is there being done at the grassroots level to get the vote out? I think your election especially was very illustrative to what grassroots efforts can accomplish. And so I'd love for you to speak to that question.
So in 2018, this is beautiful. In the primary in 2018, we saw 80% increase in voter turnout in my district. And I think my district, the 13th congressional district, and there's one in Wisconsin, that if we increase turnout in those states, then Donald J. Trump will not be the next president of the United States. And so it's really exciting that we're like at the front lines and saying that if we increase turnout. So I budgeted, you know, a lot of folks in safe Democratic, you know, they're done after the primary, but we actually budgeted until November. We're raising a significant amount of money to just do GOTV. And when I do GOTV, we do constituent services, y'all. This is so important. So we're not just asking for people like, how are you? What's going on? And then making sure that it's safe and easy for folks to vote, and making sure they have the information. Like this week, all we're doing is literally need to vote, or where they can drop off their ballots, because now it's kind of, you know, I'm worried about people putting their ballots in the mail now, because I'll tell you, Jordan, people want to vote, they do, but let's be honest, thousands. If you haven't heard from somebody that said they didn't get their ballot, there's no way. What we're hearing is just so much folks that are applying for absentee ballots to be able to vote by mail. But it's not quick enough. It's not getting to everybody. So we're trying to encourage folks to go to these satellite places to do the voting, encourage people, if they do finally get their ballot before August 1st, to take that ballot, before August 4th, drop that ballot right into the mailbox. Great news in Wayne County. I don't know, I think Oakland County, maybe you guys are doing this, but in Wayne County, I know the Wayne County Commission and Wayne County Executive Evans put about $100,000 aside for drop boxes in the November ballot, November elections. So again, one of the things, Jordan, it's not convincing people to vote. It's just trying to make it easier. And again, folks are waiting at home for their ballots. And unfortunately, I don't know if any of them, you know, some of them might not be coming through, probably because of the capacity issues. And people need to realize these are very small communities. Clerks are very limited in their capacity. Many depend tremendously on volunteers, but that's where we come in. We come in and educate people. Take your ballot, go in. Here's a place you can go on Saturday, the day before, you know, the Saturday before the election. This is where you can go vote. but we definitely are budgeting for a lot of that education and outreach. We're excited about it. You know, one thing that works more, of course, we want Biden to be our president, but I think what works more in my district is, do you all want Trump to stay for another 4 years? And that's when I see people's eyes go, no. And I said, that's what's at stake. Because I think if we focus on that versus focusing on, you know, people are still focusing on trying to persuade. And I said, no, what you need from people is to know that we can't, because people are literally dying with him as president. And I'll tell you, the first week of the pandemic, what did he do? Did he get us masks? Did he get us? No. He decided to tell the EPA, please do not enforce the Clean Air Act. Don't bother. Don't enforce the Clean Water Act. Did you know that, Coulter? He decided, that's executive order, the first week. So Andy Levin and I wrote a letter just really pushing back and saying, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with the pandemic? And so it is really endangering people's lives. So Jordan, we are definitely out there and we're excited because we built up such a great list of volunteers for our primary that they're already charged up for the November election.
If I may, just shortly, the 14th district has the largest Democratic district in the state of Michigan. And Rashida and I service the city of Detroit. We know the statistics have shown us if 2 more people in every precinct in the state had voted, and we're assuming the votes would have been Democratic, we would have won Michigan last time. My job that I take very seriously is to energize the voters in my district. And that is by showing that your government does care, having town hall meetings, the point that my colleague Brenda Carter brought up, they have to know what's happening, making sure we have the town halls, educating them, fulfilling the needs when they need the governmental workforce. We call it casework, where we actually will navigate through the federal government to help them. When we show up to rallies, when we show up at community events, and we run every 2 years, so we don't have the luxury of getting elected and going home and sit. As soon as we get elected, we begin the next campaign. I am committed through my precinct delegates. I've done a really big push in getting precinct delegates. Why? Because precinct delegates are elected and they are part of our base. Everyone plays a role, interacting with our ministers, interacting with our community leaders, block club, you name it. So my job is to make sure that I energize my base, because what happened last time, people stayed at home. And I have been educating the voters, saying when you stayed at home, you did vote. People say, well, I didn't vote. Yes, staying at home and not going to the poll was a vote.
And just to let folks know, I heard so many people say, man, I thought she was gonna win. So there was this reliance on the polling. Y'all, the polling showed her 20 points up. So I just want you to know, people wait until they feel needed. And of course they want to exercise, but it's some instinct, right? Brenda Carter knows what I'm talking about. So they're all like, oh, she's gonna be fine. That's how I hear from people. I mean, Coulter, they're like, oh yeah, they don't realize, oh my God, we just lost the state of Michigan. We just went red, and it was only by 10,000 votes, y'all. 10,000 votes, yeah. So I know they're gonna tell you the polling's out there, that Biden's gonna, don't do it. Like Senator Bernie Sanders always tells me, throw away the polls, throw them away in the garbage. Don't focus on those. That's what he always tells me. You gotta work, Rashida. You gotta keep pushing. And so I just tell you, our folks, man, as soon as you tell them we need you, God, do they come strong. I saw it with the pandemic. The first week of the pandemic, I saw my neighbors. They didn't wait. They went and checked up on people, started sewing masks. They wait until they're needed. And I'm telling them, I'm saying to them, please, we need you. We can't survive another 4 years.
We have one last.
Sorry, Jordan. Thank you. I was going to say thank you to the Congresswoman. We had another question on the floor as well. And so the question that I saw was, how can we make sure that this coming election, and I wanted to open this to both of the Congresswoman, Representative Carter, and Professor Griggs, how can we make sure that this upcoming election won't be bogus like the 2016 election, or infiltrated by the Russians, Chinese, or even the people in power now?
we have had a full court press against an internal fight with this administration. Obviously, Donald Trump's election benefited from the interference from Russia, which even his own intelligence have told him it happens. We sit on government oversight, Rashida and I, and we know that we've had hearing after hearing, and we are zero focused on fighting this administration internally to ensure that we fund our intel to fight and to block the efforts of the interference. We now have the private industry, Facebook, other private entities being forced to stand up and block some of this incoming sabotage that we have on our voting process. The thing that I really want to focus on, because there's so many arrows coming out, is the Postal Service. I served 30 years in the Postal Service. I absolutely know what the agenda is. If we can stop the processing of mail ballots, then there's an opportunity for the people's voice not to be heard. And so with the appointment of this new Postmaster General, who is clearly aligned with the president, and the president to keep doing his dog whistle that, you know what, this voting by mail is not legal, it's gonna jeopardize the vote, where we know it empowers right now, based on COVID, our opportunity to vote. And so I am on oversight, I am on the Government Relations Committee, and we are having hearing after hearing. We just saw now that there is a letter that they're forcing city clerks to sign when they drop off the ballots that they're mailing to these citizens who requested it, saying, you recognize that this ballot may not be delivered within 5 to 10 days. So the clerks are calling me all up in arms, because this has never happened. And it is part of the Constitution, part of our policies, part of the Constitution that we have a postal service. And then secondly, the standards of delivery is something that we have incorporated in policies and rules. And so we are constantly, it is so, I won't say exhausting, but it is just drilling to constantly, every single day, wake up and try to fight off another arrow. But I'm giving you my commitment and my energy and everything I have to protect the Postal Service so that we can exercise our right to vote.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lawrence. Oh yeah, I was
No,
just go ahead. And
so Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin has been such a leader on the cybersecurity issue, maybe because she used to work for the Department of Defense, or I don't know. But she is really championing the bill, actually got, I think, bipartisan support for it. On top of that, in the HEROES Act that's in the Senate now, there's millions of dollars that would come to Michigan. I think over 100 million or so. That's why I was trying to look for it. Yeah. In the HEROES Act, there's obviously a ton of money for elections. And this is about building capacity, because yes, it's security, and that's number one. But what is going to be helpful is getting our Secretary of States who work with our clerks to actually get them the technology in place to also prevent any, I mean, Mr. Jones is nodding. It's people don't understand, like, federal government can get the money, they'll get the money to the state, and that's what we can make sure to ensure that our local clerks have not only have the capacity, which is so important. I'm telling you, Redford Township, 2016 had 4,000 absentee ballots. Today they got requested, I think 9,200, something over 9,000 absentee ballots have been requested, but they still have the same amount of staff, right? And so we want to make sure that we also have the custody equally at stake. And Congresswoman Lawrence was a champion in House Oversight and other committees talking about the Postal Service, and we have $25 billion in the HEROES Act to save. And I say it's saved because it's under attack, but to save the Postal Service.
Yeah. I think now more than ever, so many of us who aren't in Washington have kind of wondered what our national elected officials, so our Congress folks, and of course our senators, are doing to ensure that democracy is actually going to be fulfilled, obviously in this upcoming election, but currently. And so it's so important and appreciated for you all to have shared what's happening in Washington and how it has a local impact. I'd love for Kim Worthy to speak to us a little bit about what her role has entailed. We, of course, have an opportunity to speak nationally, but I'd love for you to speak locally to the issues that are impacting the greater Detroit area.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. And I see there's a huge Delta contingent here today. I'm one of them as well. I'm also pleased to be endorsed by Congresswoman Lawrence, my friend. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that Congressmember Tlaib and Congresswoman Lawrence brought up. And that's the lead issue. And I remember when I first assumed this role back in 2005 as the elected Wayne County prosecutor, after having 20 years of experience as an assistant prosecutor and as a judge, one of the first things that we did is we started to look at our lead problem around the city of Detroit. And this was way before Flint. And we developed a program back then, and it was defunded a few years ago, where we prosecuted landlords who knowingly, and the key word is knowingly, rented their properties to families with children under the age of 6. And we were responsible for causing over 200 landlords in Wayne County to clean up their properties. We didn't want to send them to jail or to prison. What we wanted them to do was clean up their properties so that these families can live in their homes lead-free. And the reason why it was important to us is because we know, as I think it was Congresswoman Tlaib said, that if children are exposed to lead, they have all kinds of issues. And one of those issues, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And one of those issues is getting involved in the juvenile justice system. So again, we made these landlords clean up their properties. We made them house the families while their properties were being cleaned up. We made them house them in hotels, and then they returned to newly inspected properties by the health department of the various cities. So we stopped doing that probably about 5 years ago, but that's why I wanted to bring that up. And we'd love to reinvigorate that program. It was funded by the state when Granholm was the governor. But I've been the Wayne County prosecutor now for 15 years. And I just want to talk just a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing. One of the things that we did is we started the first Michigan ever conviction integrity unit. And we invited people to send us their cases if they had jurisdiction in Wayne County, and if they felt they were wrongfully convicted and they had a new claim of innocence. And that's the standard for a conviction integrity unit. We received probably about 1,300 to date requests. Obviously, some of them, and there were so many because some of them weren't in the state of Michigan. They just heard about us and wanted to write. Some of them weren't a lot of them weren't in Wayne County. And then we also investigated over 700 of them and found those convictions to be sound, and we're working on the others. So whoever says that we have thousands of wrongful convictions in Wayne County, that's simply not true. But what is true is that our unit is now nationally recognized as one of the more successful ones, and we've exonerated over 20 men from the Michigan Department of Corrections for some of them for decades that they served for crimes that they didn't commit. And most of those men are very big, strong supporters of mine, and they want to see us increase the unit. In fact, we went to the Wayne County Commission in early February, late January, because we wanted to double the size of the unit so we could take on more cases. Yeah, we've done many other things. We have programs that deal with our immigrants, both defendant immigrants and victim immigrants, so they won't be deported. Because believe it or not, when we have some claims of domestic violence, for example, sometimes they want to deport our victim because they're reported. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen. We also started the country's first unit that deals exclusively with the LGBTQ community, and their crimes have been ignored. There were 6 trans women that were killed not 2 miles from my home, and I literally lost sleep over it because I wanted to make sure that they were protected. So now we have the Fair Michigan Justice Project that I co-founded with our now Attorney General Dana Nessel, and we are very successful and the only one in the nation that has a unit like that. We also have diverted over 18,000 youth and adults from the criminal justice system. When I first came in, I said we had to look at alternatives to incarceration, we have to look at treatment, we have to look at diversion, and we have to look at proactivity and make sure we're proactive and make sure people don't get involved in crime in the first place. I was literally mocked when I started saying that as a prosecutor because people don't look at prosecutors that way. And this is before prosecutors, not prosecutors, have copied our programs all over the nation. So again, we've now, because of our programming, we've diverted over 18,000 people from the criminal justice system. Over 18,000 people did not go to jail, did not go to prison, do not have records because of our programming. And I don't know how much time I have. Just give me the heads up when you want me to stop talking. But we also are very, very heavily involved in Wayne County's 24 treatment courts, and that includes Veterans Court, Mental Health Court. My family and I are long-term advocates for the mentally ill children, adolescents, and adults. And we also we deal very directly with the non-violent who have mental health issues. We make sure they go into direct programming. We started seeing a huge intake of the mentally ill people when then Governor Engley closed the mental health facilities in the early 90s. We started seeing them in the criminal justice, and we worked tirelessly to get them out. I was on the bench at the time, and so I had special programming for the defendants I sentenced, and we carried that attitude into the prosecutor's office. So again, Wayne County has 24 specialty treatment courts, like I said, mental health, drugs, sobriety, veterans, and then Detroit even has a homeless court. So again, we started the first ever. Okay, all right.
Thank you so much, Prosecutor
Yes.
Worthy.
You've given us such an understanding as to how your role impacts the day-to-day lives of your constituents. And I'd love for County Executive Coulter to give us a similar understanding of what the implications are from your role on the lives of your constituents. Again, the emphasis that we've tried to focus on is that there's so much more that extends beyond the White House as it pertains to the upcoming elections. So please help us understand what your role has entailed so far, what your upcoming plans are for re-election, and of course, what your overall thoughts are about the importance of civic participation this upcoming election year.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Jordan, and thanks for what an interesting and lively panel, and I've really enjoyed listening to it. In Oakland County, we are in the middle of a very real and recent transformation. You know, Oakland County has been run by the county executive Brooks Patterson for 27 years, and he has come to define what it means to be an Oakland County resident in a lot of people's eyes. But there have been a lot of us, including my friend Brenda Lawrence and Brenda Carter and Barnett Jones and the others from Oakland County here, who have been trying to change that narrative for a long time. But with Brooks in office, it was very difficult. He was the face of the county in very many ways. So Brooks passed away about a year ago now, and I have been the county executive for the past year. And it is, in my opinion, it's a fascinating time to be involved in politics in Oakland County. I was already involved. I was the county commissioner for 8 years. I was the mayor of Ferndale for almost 9 years. So I was involved at the local level in Oakland County politics. But this is just an absolutely transformational, transformative, just exciting time to be a progressive in Oakland County. Just a few of the ways that Oakland County is changing and changing quickly over the past 12 months. I was able to hire the most diverse leadership team in Oakland County history. There had never been a female in the role of deputy executive in Oakland County. I have two. There'd never been an African-American appointed as a deputy executive in Oakland County. I appointed Rudy Hobbs, former state representative. We passed, in my first 60 days in office, working with the board, and in county government, it's always a collaboration with your partners on the Board of Commissioners. But we passed the county's first non-discrimination policy that covers all of our employees, covers our contractors and our vendors, a comprehensive policy that is just changing the mentality of how Oakland County operates. And we're just getting started, but when you talk about the importance of local government on people's lives, I think these are things that are going to make a real difference in the lives of people in Oakland County. And just to talk politically a little bit, I don't think people realize how much Oakland County had already changed before Brooks left, because he was still there and he was still the face of it. But keep this in mind, because we talk about how important it is, and I agree with all my colleagues who say how important it is to put Joe Biden in the White House. Hillary Clinton won Oakland County by 8 points. even with Brooks Patterson as the county executive. This is no Trump territory by a long shot. But even more stunning to me is that 2 years ago, in 2018, Gretchen Whitmer won Oakland County by 17 points, by more than double what Hillary Clinton did. So I say that to say, if we're talking about issues that people care about, if we're, as my friend Brenda Lawrence said, if we're energizing our base, if we're engaging them, as I know Rashida and others do, around the issues that we care about, the water service line, so important, the post office. I'm so glad our former postal employee, Congresswoman Lawrence, talks about that, because there is a nefarious agenda on the part of the people that want to dismantle that. But if we're out there leading on these issues and leaning in on these issues, we are going to energize people in Oakland County. And if we have a 17% turnout for Joe Biden instead of the 8 that we had for Hillary Clinton, this election won't be close. And so it's important for us to do these things. What else are we doing? I was really proud of the fact that working again with the Board of Commissioners, right after I got elected, we created a brand new position in Oakland County called Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, because we knew that Brooks Patterson and the Republicans had not done, you could say anything, but not nearly enough to raise up the diversity and to celebrate the unique diversity that is in Oakland County. And this is a diversity, whether it's our communities of color, whether it's our immigrant communities, who have contributed to the quality of life and to the success of Oakland County. And we haven't done enough to lift that up. And so we've got work to do internally. Our own workforce doesn't reflect the population of Oakland County, frankly. And so, but I didn't want this position to be like a lot of corporations do. They put this position in the HR department. And I said, this isn't going to be just about making sure our workforce is reflective of our county. I want this to be an all-inclusive position that looks internally and outwardly from Oakland County. And so this is a senior level position that reports directly to me. And just last month, we hired our first diversity officer. And I'm so excited to have her on board and excited to continue the change in Oakland County around these issues. Where did we see that happen? A perfect example of that, and I want to applaud Congresswoman Lawrence because she came to me right away with this issue, is during COVID, when we were so concerned about what was happening, Oakland County was very hard hit early on, it became evident that the data was showing us that people of color were being disproportionately impacted by COVID. But even before we understood what it meant, now I have a little bit of a health background, so I already understand what health disparities look like.
Executive Coulter?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to yield your time, but we're going to get back to that point.
Yeah. Can I just end that sentence? Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah. This is so we lifted that up and we leaned into that issue. And I guess that's the difference. When you put people in office who have a passion for the people, all the people, and champions for them, it's different. It's different. There's no question that we're leading on COVID now different than the Republicans led in Flint on water. There's just no question. And so I'm proud to be here on this panel with this distinguished group of people. And sorry that I got too wound up and kept talking too much.
No, you're fine. Actually, we want to give you the opportunity to ask a question or answer a question briefly that was asked you before we bring in Mr. Jones. And again, we'll keep it brief, but the question is, once we get past the pandemic, how will we resume the efforts towards a multi-county transit system? This person is asking as a curious Southfield homeowner.
Yes. When I first ran and won for office in 2002, I ran on transit. I can't believe we're still talking about this. There is nothing more important that we can do than help this region in so many ways to do transit. So, but it's tough. I have a whole new appreciation for how difficult it is. A lot of people perceived that Brooks Patterson was the obstacle, and he was, but there's a whole bunch of folks in the legislature that don't want us to pass this as well. So it's going to be a team effort. It's going to be a regional effort, but I will tell you that not only I know the people on this call and these panelists are supportive, but also, you know, Mayor Duggan and Warren Evans, Jason Morgan in Washtenaw County are all committed to doing this. None of us, no community or no county is going to be able to do this by ourselves, but we're going to work together, and you know, I know that this is a group that's committed to doing this. We're going to get the right plan, and we're going to start moving down the track of regional transit, and that's a high priority for me in terms of what will be helpful in our region.
Thank you, County Executive Coulter, for not only telling us what your role has entailed, but just educating us largely on the issues that are affecting folks in the greater Detroit area and that people probably wouldn't even be able to find out about just in the day-to-day media. What I'd love to do is open the floor to Barnett Jones. We've spoke to all sorts of people, local community leaders, of course. We spoke with our congresswomen, state and local people, but I would love for Mr. Jones to tell us about his candidacy and to help us understand, obviously, why he's running, but why he wants folks to participate this upcoming election year.
Well, thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and hello to all the Deltas in the room and the doctors there. As you say, I'm running for Oakland County Sheriff's Office in the middle of a pandemic and with social justice unrest. And I began my candidacy by saying for a time such as this. And I was hearkening back to the time before when I was a deputy and a sergeant and a lieutenant and a captain at the Sheriff's Department, and the sheriff died. And I didn't get the appointment, and I was told at that time that Oakland County wasn't ready for a Black sheriff. Although I was the most experienced, the most knowledgeable, and the most educated, the job went to somebody else. So this time, I was destined to let the people decide because I wanted to return home to my department. That is the why I'm running. The why I'm running is because back then I was the best person qualified for the job. And today I'm even more qualified because of my other experiences of running Sterling Heights and running Ann Arbor and getting more and more education and homeland security and all the other experiences that I bring along with me. But today it is so confusing for people to say, I want to vote for you because of the pandemic, because of social justice unrest. Who is Barnett Jones? Especially when you don't have Facebook. I'm new to Facebook, and we're all new to Zoom, realistically. So how do you get out and meet people and introduce them to you yourself? And when you meet people and you say, well, I'm a candidate and I've got over 40 years of law enforcement experience. I've got a associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degree. One is in education. I'm a certified principal. I'm a certified police officer. I'm a certified firefighter. They kind of go to sleep on you, but they still have an interest in knowing what you are and what you are about. It's hard to get that message out to people to let them know that I have the passion, the motivation, the education, the experience to do the job. Well, what does the sheriff do? Well, the sheriff is responsible for the county jail, #1 responsibility, and secondary roles. But most people do not understand. Dr. Griggs talked about it. Civics. Political science, they don't know the role of the sheriff. So now I'm finding myself educating them as voters, educating them about myself in the middle of a pandemic to try to get them to get out and vote. And it's important that we realize to get out and vote. I am, Dr. Griggs, you named it. I am 4 generations away from a slave. My people couldn't vote. They didn't understand it. And when they got an opportunity to vote, they put the rules and everything else in place that discouraged them from voting. We need to get out and vote because our vote counts and we need to make the right decisions. It's time to put people in office that represent us. The electeds that represent us, like the people in this room, represent us and are prepared to listen to us and take care of our cares and concerns. That's why I'm running, and it's really hard to get out and get people to understand who you are, what you're running for, what the sheriff does, and why you're the best candidate for that office right now.
You know, I would like to remind everyone to ask our panelists questions. We don't have a ton of time for extensive questions, but we absolutely want those of you who have been patient and who have been so active in participating. We want to allow you a chance to ask the folks who you're hearing from today some of the things that are on your mind. You spoke about something, Mr. Jones, and you know, it's the civil implications of voting. And I would love for Stephanie Boothe of the NAACP to talk to us about participating in the upcoming elections, obviously. With her work through the NAACP, the organization has such a rich legacy in elections, and it's really important for us to learn from her what the local chapters are doing.
Oh, am I on now?
Yes, you are on.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you to Dr. Ferguson and to you, Jordan Wilson, for holding this very important event. And to all of the people who have joined us, the audience outside of the candidates and all, I think very fortunate to be able to sit and have this amount of time to listen actually to the candidates. But let me just start by saying that I'm representing the Northern Oakland County branch NAACP, and for those listeners who may not know, the NAACP is a national member-based, volunteer-driven civil rights advocacy organization, and with about 2,000 or more branches and local units, including a very, very large youth and college division. So I want to start by just saying it's been a pleasure really listening to all of what our legislators are doing, and I think we're so fortunate to actually have them, because so many people across the country really live in states where they do not have legislators who are on their side, and on the side of the people when it comes to the issues. And that's where advocacy, comes in. And this is a very pivotal moment for our communities. I think it's a very pivotal moment for our country, and quite frankly, for our future. I really see our future being called at stake here. It's very challenging, and I'll be honest with you, in my 50 years of voting, this is the most challenging situation that I've ever witnessed. And I've been passing out leaflets since I was about 8 years old. So I had some introduction to the political process, way before I was able to vote. But this has got to be one of the most challenging times that I've seen. The pandemic has changed things, but then again, we have to realize we're very fortunate here in Michigan in that we saw the passage, of Prop 3, and so that opens up, a lot of our opportunities here in Michigan in terms of the civic engagement, with our local branches across Michigan and other states, but right here in Northern Oakland County, we have a very robust civic engagement program headed up by our Political Action Committee. And we are partnered with all of the, well, I won't say all, but with quite a few of the other electoral organizations, grassroots organizations right here locally. And we're also very well connected and partnered with all of the Divine Nine through the National Panhellenic Council right here in Oakland County. So of course we're doing all of the phone banking, but we always need volunteers. Right now we are engaged in a very robust program called Clerk Engagement, and we have partnered with the local organizations across the county, such as League of Women Voters or Oakland Forward and a number of other organizations, where we are meeting and working with the clerks so in Oakland County to help ensure the implementation of the new Michigan voting laws in a safe and equitable way. And that's our thrust right now, and that is what I would say, this is a moment where that we really are calling for all hands on deck, not just for the national elections, which we certainly are, but also for all of our local elections. And we're saying to people who, if you don't want to volunteer with the NAACP, volunteer with some organization. It's very important to get with an organized group that's organizing. Our engagement program, the clerk engagement program, is part of a larger voter protection or election protection umbrella that we have. So we will be rolling out many other levels of civic engagement. And I would just want to leave this with those who are interested. Our civic engagement program this year is Black Voters Change Lives. And we would just encourage you to go to naacp.org/volunteer. And we will have a very robust through phase 1 and phase 2. And we're going to have a very robust program in the fall where that we are able to go after Black voters who are infrequent voters. We're going to shake those bushes, but we need more volunteers to do it. So if those who are listening, if you're not connected with another civic engagement group and you're looking for a way to volunteer, I would strongly recommend that. And I'll put it in the chat box.
Thank you so much, Ms. Boothe.
Yes.
Y'all make sure you check out the NAACP/volunteer in the chat. You'll put that down for us. We'll move right along, Jordan.
That's right. And we just think that it's so important to understand, obviously, what candidates are doing, what the elected and appointed officials are doing, but what our activists are doing. And with that, we'll move on to the last person from our local community, and that is Jocelyn Howard. We'd love to hear from her about her work in activism and public service in the greater Detroit area. And we understand that you also have been working to understand that folks in the area understand this election is important, it's critical, and that it's absolutely consequential. So please tell us all about it, Jocelyn.
Well, first of all, Jordan, I am so humbled to be here among greats. I was texting some friends of mine, how are you, Dr. Pat? I'm like, I'm on here with Brenda Lawrence. Jesus, this is too much. And Dave Coulter and Rashida Tlaib, you guys are giants in the community. So I'm very humbled just to be here, just to be a part of this discussion. So Dr. Pat, thank you for even inviting me here. I'm the first African-American woman appointed to any board or commission in Warren, Michigan, the first African-American woman to actually serve as chair of any commission. And of course, my good friend, Brenda Carter, thank you so much, ma'am, for being a part of this discussion. So I understand the importance of the Black vote. I also understand the importance of community engagement. What I will share with my friend, Barnett Jones, is that, sir, keep going. Don't let your, you already have the qualifications to be a great sheriff. Just do that. Most people are not even looking at all of your qualifications. In fact, as I was listening to you, you're probably overqualified. The fact of the matter is you have to get past, you have to allow people to get past their own biases and their own stigma of what that job is. And what I would just share in terms of my activism is that here in Warren, and I believe Jocelyn Benson has indicated, the Secretary of State, that we have 3 districts in Warren that are some of the lowest performing districts as far as low voter turnout. It is important that we engage people, and I know we do it through the NAACP, so thank you, my friend. We do it through the census. Thank you, Congressman Lawrence, in terms of giving us the information regarding even the post office. But people have to feel as though they have skin in the game. And we have to be able to connect them to issues that are larger than maybe what's on our own agenda, but they need to feel as though you're not distant from them and that you're within arm's reach. I believe I ran for city council last time, and Dr. Pat knows that. And like yourself, Brother Jones, they said I was overqualified, but they said the same thing to me. They said, we're not ready for a Black city council person. Just give it a few more years and maybe we'll be ready. So my parting words, and I know I don't want my timekeeper to cut me off, but but what I would say is that we have to push past what everyone is telling us to do, and we have to reach them at the heart. I think what we need to do is to find people at the heart, because instinctively we all do things. And if we can change the mindset of people to go past the political rhetoric, to go past all of the nuances of why we shouldn't vote or what's happened before, and really drill down to, I'm your neighbor. And to get past, we have so many politicians that have muddied the water. And it's if we can lift people up past the mud and get to the very essence of who we are, and we all want the same thing, I think we can go about making some changes. When I hear, and I'm closing with this, when I hear all of the qualifications of this panel, I just know if just 1/10 of us were able to come together and bring about some changes, it could change our country, our city, our state. I'm a product of DPS. I know what happened back in the 80s and 90s, and we can do it again. We've just allowed other people to get in and give us our own or different narrative. So I'm just challenging everyone to, let's just change the narrative once again, and to be about people and not about, I was going to say politics, because we're on the politicking, but more about people and not so much about the process. And I thank you. I'm humbled to even be here.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. You're right. I say this all the time to Wen-kuni and everyone, but this is the people's time. I think we've seen with all of the protests and calls for actual systemic change that people want to be heard. They'll no longer settle for wait a minute or wait your turn. Now is the time that the people will stand up and rise. And so with that, I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Ferguson. I know that we have a special guest coming up, and she might have a couple of words to the state and local folks before that. I'd love to also encourage anyone that we don't have that much time to share any questions in the chat box. And even if we don't get to them live, we'll absolutely try to see that you get the answers that you want.
Before Dr. Ferguson goes, Jordan, could I interject for just a quick moment?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I just wanted to take the time to just shamelessly plug Politicking. Jordan and I are in the midst of a really tiresome crowdfunding campaign, and we want to be able to keep putting on events like this, not just in Michigan, but throughout the entire United States. And so I know we put the link in at the top of the hour. I'm sure we have some of the team that can re-put that crowdfunding link in there. I'll also do that. And whatever you guys can do, whatever's on your heart to give, we think it's really important. We are an entity that's continuing to work to elevate voices within the community. As you guys can see, this is what we're doing. This is what we're passionate about. And really just check out that link to see what Politicking is about and to learn more about the organization. I encourage you to download the app if you haven't. I encourage you to check out our website, and I encourage you to check out our GoFundMe website as well. And that being said, I will cede the floor to Dr. Ferguson. And thanks everyone for being so respectful of the time.
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize, please give anything that you can. You can obviously find us on GoFundMe, Politicking, POLITICKING, but you can also visit our website, which is politickingapp.com.
Right, and I just want to echo very briefly what Wen-kuni said. First of all, I want to thank Wen-kuni Cèant, if I pronounce that right, and Jordan Wilson. They're two alum of Howard University. I know, Jordan, you graduated in 2016. Were you in the same class, Wen-kuni?
I was 2013.
2013, okay, so they went to Howard University with my daughter, HU, you know.
All of your daughters and son.
And my daughters and son who just graduated. But the thing that I was impressed with was shortly after graduation, I kept hearing this politicking the app. And it was a couple of years ago. It wasn't because of an election. It was because of the need for raising awareness amongst millennials. And I just kind of jumped on a bandwagon and said, we need to raise awareness amongst our community in general to become active. And active meetings, first get some information, get informed, and then get involved. And they have been doing this tirelessly. So when she says they're in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign, it's never been about the money. They never asked me one time for any financial support to do this platform. And I have no tech savvy, so it wouldn't have happened without them. And we have worked on the phone tirelessly over the last 10 days or so to put this together. So we can, if we could do this in 10 days with no budget, just imagine what they're going to do. They've been mentioned in Forbes magazine. They've been all over the country. Jordan is very, very humble. They're both very humble about their training and their background. They have been working. And so when I say that, this is not a shameless plug. I'm saying the more we can get the word out to support them, the better off we will be, because this has never happened in my lifetime. I have not seen this kind of commitment and effort. And we just talked about it. And today, here it is, we're doing it live. And we have had 0 technical glitches. A little bit trying to get on and get started, but that's the nature of the internet. So having said that, all of you, I appreciate your time and patience. We do have a special guest, Mr. Bakari Sellers, a CNN correspondent, author, attorney, family man, and more. I can go on and on and on. He knows his bio better than me and can share what relevant bio needs to be said. But more importantly, he's going to share some comments. We obviously left him as much time as he needs and wants, but his ultimately is going to be a call to action. And I think that call to action applies not only to the panelists who have already put forth your own call to action, but to the attendees. And I'm not quite sure how far our audience extends, but if we have motivated and inspired one voter, then I feel like we accomplished our goal. And I see Bakari Sellers right there. And we're going to turn the floor over. Jordan, if you want to have any more comments. Other than that, I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to sit back and listen attentively to hear what Bakari Sellers has to say from his experience as a subject matter expert.
No further comments. Just want to say how excited we are to get an urgent call to action about participating this fall in the election. So with no further ado, Bakari Sellers.
Well, I love to be right on time, to say the least. I have a partner sitting with me today because it's just he and I who are the kings of the house today, only because the ladies are gone. So first, let me just say that I'm from the big city of Denmark, South Carolina, where we have 3 stoplights and a blinking light. And my mom and dad would always tell me the 2 most important words in the English language are the words thank you. And they're not nearly said enough. And so before I begin, I just want to say thank you to you all for extending the invite. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you even virtually. And I look forward to being with you in person as soon as the Rona will let us be great again. Today I had an amazing opportunity at about 11 o'clock. I was on CNN and I was commentating on John Lewis crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge once again for the final time. It was pretty amazing as he was crossing the river. The Mississippi River. He was also crossing the River of Jordan into heaven. And for me, it was a very powerful moment, and it's where I will begin this evening. It was so powerful for me because I remember, and I don't want anyone to forget who is on this call, who is watching us, who will hear about the things that we say this evening, that the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, the Confederate flag coming down in South Carolina, police reform, etc. All of these accomplishments that we've made were made because of Black blood that spilled in these streets. And so I want us to be very clear about the shoulders upon which we stand. I want us to be very understanding about the fact that freedom ain't free. And I want us to all kind of reposition ourselves, because I feel as if we may have been a little wayward over these next 100 days until November 3rd. I reminisced on John Lewis because a lot of people, they put John Lewis with Dr. King. And while that may be a small part of his legacy, the overarching part of his life was in SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, where he was chairman. He was actually the only chairman who served the length of time that he did. And I think back to that organization, and not just my father, who was shot February 8th of 1968, but I also think about Marion Barry. I think about Julian Bond. I think about Diane Nash. I think about Stokely Carmichael. And I can't say Stokely too much because this young man is named Stokely after Stokely Carmichael. And I think about all of these heroes and sheroes. I think about Fannie Lou Hamer, and I think about Ella Baker. And I think that they would ask us two very simple questions at this time. How far have we come, and where do we go from here? So with all the elected officials I have on the call, all those individuals who are stakeholders, all these individuals who are grass tops, let's remember the grassroots people. Let's remember the local people who make our communities go. And let's ask ourselves those very simple questions, even in all of our experience. How far have we come, and where do we go from here? I have to admit that I am the best type of legislator. I am a retired legislator. That's the best kind. I'll let y'all, everybody else who still got it, I'm gonna let y'all have it. I served for a decade. It's really weird to say that when you're 35 years old, but I served for a decade, and I was a statewide I was the first or the youngest person to ever be nominated for a statewide elected office here in South Carolina. I was 30 years old when I won the nomination to run for lieutenant governor. And the reason I'm here with y'all today is because I lost that race, but I digress. But I think about all of the things that we are doing. I think about all of the ways that we are trying to impact the world. And let us just take a moment to take stock of how far we've come. And people want to say that, oh my God, we've made it, we're here. Not only have we had a Black president, we're having this national reckoning. White folk and everybody else are opening their eyes. But let's just take a moment here and ask, how far have we come? Yesterday would have been Emmett Till's 79th birthday. That's 4 years older than my father. That's 1 year younger than John Lewis, 1 year younger than Jim Clyburn. He was taken from us. Remember the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Remember King's assassination in '68. Remember all of these things that happened, and let us take stock and understand that we stand on the shoulders of greatness, but we still have yet a ways to go. And so ask yourself the next question, which is, where do we go from here? Which is a very difficult conversation to have. And I'm very pleased of all the elected officials that joined us tonight, because that is going to take all of us joining hand in hand, individuals of good hearts and like minds trying to push forward. Because we see racism, we see bigotry, we see xenophobia, and we want to rise above that, because I have little people now who don't deserve to grow up in the America we have today. So the question is, where do we dig deep? How do we find those legacies of those who have come before us? And how do we change the dynamics, the culture, and the trajectory of our country for the better? Because it takes every single person who is under the sound of my voice right now, elected and unelected. It takes people like Jordan who have been able to put together an event like this. It takes the youthful advocacy that we see all around us. People with an idea who know how to teach y'all old folk how to use Zoom. See, this is what it takes. It takes a collection of us. It takes us to be able to rebuild community, because right now in many black neighborhoods, we don't even have community anymore. They've taken that from us as well. And so what I want us to do is to do something that King taught us. He said that when we asked the question, where do we go from here? He gave us two choices. He said we could either have chaos or community, and I want us to rebuild community. I want you to go forward, and I want you to think about how we empower those who are not as fortunate as us. I want you to go forward, and I want you to think about how we make sure that there is a new generation of activists, how we sometimes need to understand that passing the mantle is just as right as keeping hold to it. I want us to understand that there's another generation coming that, whether or not you want to pass the mantle or not, is probably going to take it from you. I want us to understand, how do we make the ground more fertile so that other people can grow? I want us to understand what leadership is, because for far too long, we thought you had to be in a pulpit and have people sitting out in pews for you to be leaders. But we never really realized what the movement taught us, that leaders beget other leaders. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It matters how many people around you can go out and be servant leaders in your circle. And so as we reminisce, as we think about John Lewis today, I speak to you all with such a heavy heart, because I knew the boy from Troy. That's what King called him. King called him the boy from Troy. He gave the speech at 23 years old. He was 23 years old when he spoke at the March on Washington. He was the youngest speaker there. And I'm so excited about where we can go from here. And I remember today, George Floyd. I remember David McAtee. I always lift up Breonna Taylor. I remember Ahmaud Arbery, and I just realized that they are just 4 of the names of the so many that we've lost. So I don't want to be a message of despair. I want to be a message of hope, uplift, and a message of hope. Hope that we can be better than we were. Hope that we can be better than we are. And hope in a brighter tomorrow. Because there's so many people who have given what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion, who still believe, and we have to still believe in the better angels of our nature. So we can go out here and change this world for the better, because if it doesn't happen in a room like this with us, if it doesn't happen with young people like myself and with Jordan, then it won't happen at all. And so understand that it's our time. Understand that we have to be the change we want to see. Understand that C.T. Vivian and John Lewis and Joseph Lowry, who all died within 100 days, and C.T. and John died on the same day. They're up in heaven right now. They're hanging out with Elijah Cummings. They're preparing a speech with Dr. King. They're looking at Malcolm and saying that, Malcolm, we tried, but still Black women are the most disrespected people on earth. They're looking at Stokely, and they're looking at Marion, and they're looking at Julian Bond, and they're saying, we got to still light a fire. And so for all of you all who are on this call today, I want you to be re-energized, because sometimes you can lose your hope. You can get filled with despair. But I don't care how tired you are. My little Stokely and Sadie need you to wake up. They need you to keep pushing on. They want you to be, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, sick and tired of being sick and tired. So go home tonight and eat you a good meal on a Sunday and rest, because even God rested on Sunday. So we'll let you rest today. But understand that tomorrow is a day that we have to come out, and everybody has to be a superhero, because that's what I expect from you. John Lewis's death taught us something that we don't take stock of enough. It taught us that heroes walk among us, because oftentimes our history is reduced to Martin, Malcolm, and Rosa, but we don't understand the heroes we have right in our community. And tonight, Jordan's a superhero. My cousin up there is a superhero. We're all superheroes walking among us. And I want you guys to be re-energized and refocused and go out and understand that this country owes us. And we're going to push it to be more better than it was. You got anything to say, Stokely? What? No? Say bye-bye. Oh, that's what.
Thanks, Stokely.
I'll take a few questions if we have them, Jordan. I know I'm a little bit, I think we got about 8 minutes. So I'll take a few questions if you got them.
Thank you for those powerful words, Bakari. I absolutely want to give people an opportunity to ask any questions. We have a couple of minutes. And while you're here, we definitely want to give everyone an opportunity to share what's on their hearts with you. You know, I think so often we ask ourselves, where do we go? My favorite book from MLK is, in fact, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? But you've empowered us to understand how we can move forward towards community. That's something that's important and very much needed right now. So thank you again. Everyone, please ask questions in the chat box. And our first question for you, Bakari, is do you have any inspiration to run for office again? You're gonna give us a Politicking, Each One Teach One exclusive. And so, yes, that's the first one. Any political aspirations in the future?
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying being a husband and father. We wrote an amazing book. We have great things going on right now. I am looking forward to thank you for that, My Vanishing Country. You know, I'm looking forward to running for Congress one day. I'll tell you a story. It's not really a story. I'm really good friends, as you see me rocking the sweatshirt today. I'm really good friends with Senator Harris. And when I got off TV today, I called 2 people. I called my dad and I called Senator Harris. I'm a very emotional person, and people who know me know that. And I called both of them, and I told my dad, I was just like, all of our heroes are leaving. And my dad was he was a national program director for SNCC, and he actually served, he was national program director, which is like a vice chair or second in charge of SNCC when under John Lewis in 65 and Stokely Carmichael in 66. And so, you know, I was just checking on him to make sure he was doing well. And then I called Kamala. And I said, you know, the most amazing thing is that we don't say thank you enough. And we take for granted Black women a lot in our political stratosphere. And I said, I just want to say thank you. And, you know, to answer your question, I want to run for Congress soon, but I also just kind of want to see what happens over the next 100 days. Even more importantly, what happens over the next 6 days, to be honest with you. 6, 7 days to see who is the vice president of the United States. We'll see what happens. But once you get this bug of politics, it's really, really hard to shake. It really is. I worked on Capitol Hill when I was a sophomore in college, and I've been involved in politics ever since.
Well, Corey, can you give us a moment to just hear a couple more things about your book? Obviously, you want us to buy it, but I'd be so curious to hear how that process was in terms of, if you want to talk about the writing process, if you want to talk about how urgent it is of a read right now, it'd be great to understand a little bit more about My Vanishing Country.
So yeah, I mean, I hope I'm not putting any pressure on anybody, Jordan. I mean, I ain't out here just shaking people down.
We are, please buy it. We are.
Jordan said, we gonna flip them heads, we beat them up, tails, we beat them. I'm like, slow down. You know, I wrote this book kind of fast to write books because this fall, 44 has a book coming out, and you never want to be out there competing with Barack Obama. If people had $30, they definitely ain't gonna buy your book. So he's like, I tell people often, I say Barack Obama's like Drake. So if Drake releases an album, you got to move your release date. You just got to move it. You know, I wrote it in about 5 months. I sat down every day for 15 minutes a day. And I know we probably have some people in the clergy or pastors here who write sermons. And they usually write them on Saturdays or Fridays. They usually write them on Fridays and they submit them on Saturdays, right? So I wrote, some days I would sit down write at 15 minutes and get up in frustration. And some days I write for 2 hours. But every single day, there wasn't a day that I didn't sit down for 15 minutes. And, you know, it tells a truthful story. It talks about the trauma of being Black. It talks about the Orangeburg massacre for me. And the most important day of my life, all the way through the Charleston massacre where my friend Clemente Pinckney was shot and killed. It talks about me being the youngest Black elected official in the country and running for lieutenant governor. My experiences on CNN, it's a very truthful tale. It talks about the birth of these amazing babies. Sadie's with her mom today and Stokely's with dad, and the difficulty of my wife's pregnancy. Well, not pregnancy, but childbirth, the same thing that many Black women go through. And so we're very fortunate that this book was, I'm from a town where we had 3,000 people, and this book was a New York Times bestseller for 3 weeks in a row, which is kind of difficult to do. And it's being released in Spain, Germany, and France in the beginning of the new year. And we're just very, very excited about all the possibilities. And the cover of the book is Ms. Ferguson put up, is so amazing to me because it's a picture of a Black boy, and there aren't many images of when you go into a bookstore or you're reading a book that have little brown boys on the front of them. And so I want somebody to be able to pick up a book and see an image of them. You know, one of the things about these political things, Jordan, is I think that we lose sight of our number one goal. You know, people of color in politics and those of us who are stakeholders and elected officials have to remember, whether or not you're an elected official or in the NAACP, your number one job is to be an example. We got to be able to show other people that they can do this. Jacob Philadelphia is a name any of y'all know. I can't see everybody's face, but Jacob Philadelphia was a bad man. He was 4 years old, and he got an opportunity because his parents worked in the White House, and they were retiring, and he got an opportunity to ask Barack Obama in the Oval Office one question, and his only question to the 44th president was, "Does your hair feel like mine?" And the president leaned over, and Jacob reached up and touched his hair, and there's this great image of that, and it's a powerful image, probably second most powerful image to come from the Obama White House. And why is it so powerful? It's powerful because it shows little brown boys and girls around the world that they too can be the most powerful person in the world. And we have to remember, in the seats that we hold, they're not ours. The first time you call this my seat is going to be your exit. So if you are a county council person, a city council person, a president of a civic organization, or a member of Congress, and you say, I am happy to be in my seat, that's the quickest way to be gone, because ain't nothing about it yours. The number one thing we can do is be examples, and we have to keep that in mind.
Bakari, I actually had a question. I'm Wen-kuni Cèant, the other co-founder of Politicking. Thank you so much for joining us. Not to put your age out, but you're 35 years old, and it's funny, Jordan and I always talk about politicking, and we say politicking was created with 18 to 35 demographic in mind, and you're kind of on the precipice between these two generations, and I think you're uniquely positioned to really unify these generations. And so I would ask you, to all the multi-generations in the room, what can we do to unify our different generations for success in this upcoming political cycle?
That's a good question, and it's something that we are remembering a lot now with the life and legacy of John Lewis, and that's why I talked about SNCC a lot. SNCC was his own organization. SNCC was started because Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, was a secretary over at SCLC, and when she looked at SCLC, what she see? A bunch of old male ministers, and she said, "Ain't no space for me over here." And she went out, and they realized that there were so many young people that wanted to be a part of the process. So they created their own organization to harness that energy of young people all around. And so I do feel somewhat like a middle child, in the words of the great American poet, J. Cole. You know, when you're kind of a middle child, you can bridge these generations. And what I would tell younger people than millennials and Generation Z, is that it's our time now. We're not the leaders of tomorrow. We're the leaders of right now. And we have to take that mantle, and we need to continue to lead whatever Black Lives Matter is doing, or whatever organizations like Politicking are doing in the streets of Michigan, or the streets around the world. We have to continue to do that. We have to continue to be present. We have to continue to fill that void. We have to make sure that we're bringing more people into the process. It's very important. And for the generation that's older than us, I would do two things. One, I would challenge you guys to continue to share your stories, because a lot of time old folk can be selfish in their knowledge, and they don't want to share it with us. Like, everybody on this call who's above the age of 60 needs to have a diary. They need to have one of them little marble composition notebooks. They need to be writing their stories down. We are a people of storytelling. There are lessons that can be learned. I remember we were in Baton Rouge. Black Lives Matter and others were in Baton Rouge after the death of Alton Sterling, and my dad called me, and he was like, "Man, make sure you tell DeRay and the rest of them in Brittany, man, they can't be protesting at night. Do everything you want to do during the day, but don't protest at night." And his whole theory was that you didn't want to protest at night because people, meaning law enforcement, do things under the cover of darkness they wouldn't otherwise do during the day. It was a reminder. My father was shot February 8th, 1968 at night. 3 people were killed: Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton. So I challenged the generation who's above us to write their stories, to tell their stories. And then I challenged them to get out the way. Like, you know, there's a certain element of, we don't really need our hand held. We're going to make mistakes, and protest is extremely messy. We're not trying to be disrespectful or rude. We're just trying to lead. We feel as if our country is not living up, not just to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but also not living up to the words of hope, justice, truth, love, and peace. And we're of the age now where we want to try to create change within every venue and vessel that we have at our availability. And so I think that there's an amazing opportunity for us to have this dialogue and to have this conversation. And I'm glad that you and Jordan are kind of leading it right here.
Bakari, we're so grateful for you to obviously urge us to participate, but to share your story. I think it's super powerful And it's obviously something we really, really treasure from this evening. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we have so many more questions for you. What I think we can all do is share them with you. And whenever you get a chance, send them back to us. We'll share with those who have asked. But what I want to do is respect everyone's time for the rest of the evening. And again, thank you all for your patience. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for spending your Sunday evening. As Bakari said, this is supposed to be the day of rest. But, you know, we, as in Each One Teach One and Politicking, did not want to miss the opportunity to help you all understand what's happening locally before the August 4th election. And we're 100 days away from either re-electing a president or electing a new one. So however it happens is not necessarily our goal this evening. What we want to let you know is that you should participate no matter what, no matter who you're voting for. And so thank you so much, Bakari, and thank you to all of the other candidates and local leaders that participated this evening. I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Ferguson.
Thanks again, Jordan. And I could go around the screen one by one. Professor Griggs, Jocelyn, Representative Carter, I'm sorry. We had Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, Congresswoman Tlaib, who had other engagements. I know Kim Worthy, the Wayne County prosecutor and who's running for election, is on the line. Northern Oakland County branch NAACP President Stephanie Boothe, everybody who has, I see Mr. Barnett Jones running for Oakland County Sheriff. Just thank you so much. It is Sunday evening. I know there are a lot of questions and things in the chat, but again, in the interest of time and to respect everybody's time, I wish we could do this again, and maybe we will, but know that we really sincerely appreciate your heartfelt comments, your sincere efforts, and the courage to step out and run in this day and age. We know there are a lot of haters and criticizers. People can always tell us what we should do, what we could do, how we could do it better, but we're out here doing it, and we're making a difference. And like I said, if we have impacted one person and that ripple starts there, then I think what we have done has been successful. And I really do appreciate it. We'll stay in touch with each other. Anything I can do as an individual and my platform through Each One Teach One, we are here. Same with, I can speak for Jordan and Wen-kuni for Politicking the app. Our goal isn't we're not doing this for ourselves. We really do want to see the greater community at large do better. We can be better. And it starts with informing and educating ourselves. And I think the easiest first step is to start reading and encouraging reading amongst our circles of influence. So on that note, if anybody has one, what are we at, 8:28, 20-second wrap up, any comments, I really would like to give you anybody that has to drop off, we understand, but I think I would be remiss if I didn't give at least each of you 20 seconds tops to just express
Dr. Ferguson, really quick, sorry, can we get you to tell us, if you know, when the polls open, when the polls close locally, and just some really quick pertinent information they need for the August 4th election?
Okay, I think the most pertinent information I can tell you is for your specific district's polling place. You can find any information that you need at secretaryofstate.gov or michigan.gov. That's where I learned everything. There is a rundown of every single position, every single county in Michigan, every single polling place, every single time the polls open and close. But in general, August 4th, Tuesday, polls typically open as early as 6:30, 7, and they stay open until 6:30 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And you can, Mr. Jones, you can correct me. But I do know absolutely with certainty, anything that you want to know about your legislator, their voting history, what legislation they've introduced, where, when, who, and whatever it took for them to apply and get on the ballot. If you go to sos.gov and just search upcoming elections, local elections, you'll find it. And I'll be posting it on my website and my social media.
And I'd also like to shamelessly plug Politicking. It's a comprehensive tool that will help you know what to do when you're walking up to the ballot, obviously on August 4th and in November, but even now, it's something that will provide context to a lot of the issues that we're talking about. So please download the app and follow us on social media.
And don't forget to donate.
Right, and one other thing I'll do, this is not a shameless plug, but this is an urgency, an urge on my part on behalf of Northern Oakland County Branch NAACP. And Stephanie, I'm doing this because I was excited just talking to you and meeting you for the first time. NAACP is active. It is alive and well, and they do more than host the annual NAACP dinner. And Detroit is prominently known for hosting the largest one in the country. They are active. I saw some information in the chat about what they're trying to do for the safety of those who choose to come out and vote in person. So the NAACP is alive and well in Northern Oakland County. The Democratic Black Caucus. I had no idea until I met Mr. Jones. So we just have to inform and educate people that in order to know what's going on, you have to seek information, and the information is readily available. I'll just shout out to Jocelyn out in Macomb County, one of the most racially active, sensitive, divided counties. She's out there doing it. And there are people who are interested in getting involved. So we just have to make ourselves more aware and make the conversation about our civic responsibility.
Can I just jump in? This is Kim Worthy. I just want to thank you for allowing me to be on the show. I am thankful to be able to share what we're doing in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, often beyond what people think. And I would ask for your support on August the 4th. Thank you so much for this, and I will be making a donation.
Thank you, Kim.
Listen, if y'all don't go out there and support Kim Worthy, y'all tripping. We would love to have people like Kim Worthy fighting a good fight down here in South Carolina and North Carolina. So I know y'all sometimes give your local people hell and their thankless jobs. Kim don't know me from nothing, but I will tell you from afar, we appreciate her, we love her, we prop her up, we pray for her, and she is a bad, bad woman. So Kim, I'm just here to say that.
Say that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity, and I will be donating. And Mr. Sellers, I enjoy you on CNN. It's probably the only program I watch, and I just enjoy your emotion and your straightforward newscasting with soul from the heart. Just wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'd like to say thanks for inviting me. This was wonderful. Jordan, Ferguson, Brother Bakari, I commend you. I commend you. Keep up the good work.
I would like to say, especially to the people who are listening, thank you very much, Dr. Ferguson, for your comments about the Northern Oakland County Branch NAACP. But all the issues that you guys heard tonight, we at Northern Oakland County, we have a very robust Water is Life campaign, and we are really doing it in the environmental climate justice issues, which is heavily linked to poverty and racism. So if you're looking for a place to get involved in terms of the issues on the local level, the grassroots level, think about joining the NAACP and volunteering and being a part of that whole movement, because, you know, we're gonna protest, but protests eventually end, and we've got to move to power. If we don't move to power, we won't have outcomes. So we welcome everybody to join us, and thank you so much for having us here tonight.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Dr. Ferguson. Thank you to Wikami. I thank you so much. I am a daughter of a Pentecostal preacher. So there is a scripture that says in Philippians that let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God thought it not robbery to be equal with God. And so my parting statement is, it is not robbery to be equal. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Jordan. Once again, amazing job of hosting. Thank you, Wen-kuni, for keeping us on time. We were done on time, so this is extra. And just the fact that you all hung around, I really appreciate that, because everybody could have hung up and had somewhere else to be, but clearly this is important to each and every one of you, and it means a lot to me. So thank you.
And thank you, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be able to have gone again virtually to the greater Detroit area this evening. I certainly feel inspired after Bakari's words, after hearing from the greater Detroit community, and I'm ready to get it in November again. However the election goes, I am just absolutely ready to participate and uplift our communities.
Thank you.
We're so humbled that all of you guys took your evenings to join us. We will continue to do the work as long as you guys continue to do the work as well. And so we'll continue to be in unison and move forward together.
Well, thank you. The real change begins August 4th.
August 4th.
Yeah.
Barnett Jones for Oakland County Sheriff's Office. That's the real change, beginning then.
Yeah, we'll get the word out on all our social media. And
All
thanks
right.
again, Bakari Stokely. Stokely's been amazing. He just
Thank you, Stokely. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
He's a real star.
You're grooming him already, I see, right?
Say bye-bye, Stokely. Stay bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Have
great
a great
evening.
evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.